In this video, we are going to change movie client consume URL to API gateway URL with bearer token, which getting from the ident server 4 and OpenID Connect. Until now, we didn't use Ocelet API gateway, but now our API gateway is ready to use. So we should redirect MVC client request to Ocelet API gateway in order to avoid direct calls of the internal protected API resources. Let's take an action now. First of all, we will start with the go to movies API client definition into the client project. So let me close all tabs and let me close collapse all project and go to the client project. So go to the client project and we will start with the movie API client definition into the client project. For that purpose, go to movies client MVC project and go to startup CS, and we are consuming the API project with definition of the dependency injection in here. Okay, we should go to the startup CS and the configure services. So under the configure services method, we should focus on the definition of the our movies API client. As you can see that we have developed this movie API client and register in here add HTTP client method, and we have configured in here. So check the base URL. The important thing is the base address for us, because we are referring as a base address 5001 and we are consuming the movies API from actual internal service API. This is the internal microservice for us, and we would not be directly reaching and accessing the internal microservices like that. So that's why I'm going to remove this port and set that 5010. So what's happened now, we are referring this client application for the API gateway, and after that API gateway calling the internal movies API. By this way, we are protecting the internal microservices with putting the API gateway, and of course we are going to consume the ident server for getting token and passing token over the API gateway when retrieving actual data from the movies protected API resources. So we had changed our base address 5010. It is very important. This is the API gateway URL. You can check the right click properties and debug. You can verify the API URL. All of these are HTTPS protection, and after that we can change the request path to Ocelet once. So maybe you remember when we are consuming the get operation. Let me open here movies controller, and we have a get movies. We are using the movies API and right click, go to implementation. When I implement this method, I'm preparing to request like this way, right? But this time we are referring to API gateway, and we are exposing APIs from the API gateway with no API keyword, right? So that's why I'm going to remove movies APIs and make them more clear and more summarized way. So why I'm going to change these movies, because we set our connection of the backend microservice as an API gateway exposing 5010, and after that API gateway exposing the movies services as a movies URL. We can verify the URL with the Ocelet JSON configuration. As you can see that once we hit our Ocelet JSON movies path, then it will redirect to us 5001 and API movies. So that means it is directly internal movies API project. But that's why we should change our request path as per the upstream path template from the Ocelet JSON. It is exposing these API with only movies, not API movies. So these are the client changes. We have changed the startup configuration. Also we have changed our API service implementation when preparing the get request message, and now we can check our project, test our project with the Postman. But before that, let me put a breakpoint in the HTTP handler in order to get the token. To get token, it is good to put breakpoint in here. not required this one. Okay, we are going to run our project, and we will get token in here, and after that we will send request to API gateway to see our movies API actual data can be retrieved over the API gateway with generated token. That's why we are going to test our application and put breakpoint in here. So check the postman, put the breakpoint onto authentication ender, and also run the application now. Okay, let me close this one because this is the only running API gateway. This time I am going to, let me right click, properties. I'm going to run multiple startup project, and I'm going to start with the API gateway also. So by this way you can start all of the application, apply, and okay. So let's start the whole applications. We are going to get access token when logging the information and send request to API gateway, API gateway URL on the postman, and we will also save this URL on the postman collection. Let me focus on the get the token first. Okay, so now this is my page, and I'm clicking the movies, and it is directed to me login page. I'm going to log in with the Bob B1. Once I log in the system, our HTTP request handler generating the debug, and we have get the access token, right? So now let me get the access token. It is important to get access token with that way. Copy the access token, and this time we are going to test our API gateway, right? So for that purpose, open the postman, and under the postman collection we have a movies API. Under that you should also create the get movies from the API gateway. I'm giving to this name. The actual operation is we are hitting the localhost 5010 and movies. So we have a authorization, we should provide the authorization. Let me send a now, and it will not return a response. Yes, most probably it is getting a unauthorized error because now we are on debug mode. That's why I think it is not returning any action. So how we can do that? Let me stop this one. Where can I stop? Cancel. Yes, let me stop this request, and let me take this token, close, and after that I will continue the operations. Let me continue, and now authorization, token, remove the token, and hit the send button. Okay, very good. As you can see that we are retrieving the movies API project from the API gateway, because this port is the API gateway and this URL is the API gateway upstream. That means exposing these API to the external systems. So once we are hitting this from the front-end channels, it will retrieve the actual information with the verifying token, because we get this token from the ident server 4 with putting the breakpoint in here. So everything seems okay, and you can also save this link under our postman collection. Also I will share this postman collection into the resource section. So it is very good. We can able to get results successfully, and so now let me configure the API gateway. Let me configure the launch settings. Let me close this one and right click the API gateway. We don't need the launch browser because it is opening a empty browser. I'm closing this one. So finally we can run all our 4 application, and let's make a big test now. I'm starting with the Ctrl F5 without debugging. I don't need to debug anymore. So now our API, let me log out, and this is our front-end channel. This is the MVC application. Once I click the movies, I'm logging the system, and it will get token, and it will retrieve this information over the OSET API gateway, and everything is working fine now. Very good. We did a great job now. Okay, let me explain better in the big picture now what we have done so far. As you can see that we can finally manage to complete all microservices in this picture and provide to security with using Identity Server for OpenID Connect and OAuth 2 infrastructures. What we have done so far in this picture. We have a Movies Client MVC application. It is an interactive client and use OpenID Connect protocol with logging with the Identity Server. Our client application pass credentials to an Identity Server and receive back to JSON Web Tokens. Once the client has a bidder token, it will call the API endpoint, which is fronted by the Ocelot API Gateway. Ocelot API Gateway is working as a reverse proxy. After Ocelot rerouting the request to the internal API, it will present the token to Identity Server in the authorization pipeline. If the client is authorized, the request will be processed and a list of the movies will be sent back to our client. We will also test it a few minutes before. Also, over this picture, we have applied the claim-based authentications. So far so good. In the next section, you will develop your security layer for an existing microservice architecture with these learnings.